Dinosaurs against mammals is a classic matchup that I've personally covered quite a bit. I wanted to cover a matchup we saw in Jurassic World Chaos Theory, this of course being Suchomimus vs Hippopotamus, the undercard of dinosaur matchups. Between these two river kings, who really takes the crown? G'day mates, I'm your host, bringing another versus video. Do you think the mammals or the dinosaurs would take the win? As always, make sure to like and subscribe to see more videos like this, and let us dive headfirst into the video. We'll start off with the Suchomimus. So Suchomimus torrensis is known as the middle child of the Spinosaurid family, being larger than Baryonyx and Irritator while still being smaller than Spinosaurus and I guess Oxalia, depending on whatever that dinosaur is up to nowadays. Anyways, this theropod measured around 11 meters or 36 feet in length, 3.1 meters or 10 feet tall at the hips, and it would have weighed in at around 4 to 5.4 tons. Clearly, it was a giant not to be underestimated, placing it among the other megatheropods. We can also guess that as a result of its immense mass, along with many other different dinosaur remains, that it would have been able to take quite a bit of punishment. A double-edged sword that this theropod has over its relatives is that research has consistently placed its terrestrial adaptations over that of the Spinosaurus and Baryonyx. Now, that's a good thing as it would be a far more stable fighter on land, but also kind of a bad thing because, you know, hippos aren't fully terrestrial. As for weaponry, well, the Suchomimus along with its family had the most distinctive skulls of any other Grypsotheropod. Its long narrow snout, shaped very similar to that of modern crocodilians, was filled with over 100 conical teeth that curved slightly backwards and were finely serrated. These teeth weren't designed for crushing bone, but they were extremely effective when it came to gripping slippery prey such as fish. The jaws themselves were a bit more so for fast snapping bites rather than massive crushing force. As for its exact bite force, well, that depends on the study you want to go with. A 2005 study placed its bite force at the same level as the American alligator. Meanwhile, Snively and Rowe's 2021 study placed it around 4,000 newtons. Either way, pairing its bite force with its skull size could do some serious damage. But arguably its standout weapons had to be its forelimbs. Like other Spinosaurids, Suchomimus had large powerful forelimbs equipped with massive hooked thumb claws. These claws have been hypothesized to have been used to hook fish, slash prey and hold down struggling animals. Its thumb claw, being its largest claw, grew around 19 centimeters or 7.5 inches in length. While its bite may not have been at the same level as the Tyrannosaur, the combination of gripping teeth, huge forelimbs, and immense size made Suchomimus a very potent predator. Though when it comes to speed, unlike more famous theropods like Tyrannosaurus rex, there isn't nearly as much research on the Spinosaurid locomotion, especially for Suchomimus. However, considering it was more adapted for life on land than some of its relatives, it could be argued that it would be able to move at a fairly decent pace for an animal of its size. While it was definitely no sprinting specialist, it would have been capable of moving quickly enough to pursue prey along riverbanks and floodplains. Looking at the brains of related Spinosaurids gives us a good enough idea of what Suchomimus may have been working with. A study of the Spinosaurid Irritator found that it possessed enlarged floccular lobes in the brain. These are regions associated with stabilizing vision and coordinating head movements. Finally, we get into the Suchomimus' experience, and I've got to say it's rather interesting. It lived in now what is the Sahara during the early Cretaceous. The ecosystem was home to large crocodilomorphs like Sarcosuchus. That's right, the classic super croc actually lived with Suchomimus and not Spinosaurus. This giant croc could grow over 8 meters or 26 feet in length and weigh several tons, making it one of the largest crocodilomorphs to ever exist. This presence would have likely resulted in quite a bit of confrontation between the theropod and the croc, as both would have wanted to control water sources for both territory and the food that was within it. And if you thought that was rough, the land was no cakewalk either. It lived with medium-sized herbivores including Lodosaurus and Uranosaurus, both which could grow over 7 meters or 23 feet in length and weigh several tons in weight. And of course, it coexisted with some big theropods. The least controversial theropod was Cryptops. This Abelosaurid could grow 7 meters or 23 feet in length and would have likely hunted the smaller herbivores that lived in the landscape. Here is where things get murky. We have Cristatosaurus, which was a theropod that has been heavily compared to Suchomimus over the past years. The same sort of applies with Eocarcharia, except this seems to have been a chimera between Spinosaurid and Carcharodontosaurid remains. And of course, the most likely source of the Suchomimus' competition would have come in the form of other Suchomimuses. Overall, I think that Suchomimus is an underrated unit of a theropod. It's heavily built, adapted to the land, and has some solid weaponry to it. However, how does the hippopotamus size up? Well, Hippopotamus amphibius is one of the largest modern terrestrial mammals. Now, their average weight tends to get around the 1.5 ton range. However, if we use that, then it'd get absolutely cooked. The upper weights I've found tend to sit between 3.2 to 4.5 tons. However, the higher ends come with the caveat of being less reliable, but there is research putting it comfortably at 3.2 tons, and other official records have gotten it to 3.6 tons. In terms of measurements at their high end, well, they can get to 5 meters or 16.4 feet in length and a height of 1.6 meters or 5.2 feet. On top of their sheer mass, hippos actually come equipped with some serious natural armor. Their skin can reach around 5 to 6 centimeters or roughly 2 inches thick in certain areas, which provides a natural protection against bites and tusks from other hippos. Because of that durability, hippos are known to casually survive attacks from predators like lions and hyenas. They are even able to overpower large-gnarled crocodiles. But durability isn't the hippo's only advantage. Their primary weapons are their jaws, which are honestly ridiculous when you think about it for a bit. A hippo can open its mouth over 120 degrees, creating a gape of over 1 meter, which will be very handy when having to fight a large opponent. Inside of their jaws are massive tusk-like canine teeth, which can grow over 70 centimeters long and will continue growing throughout their life. Now, these teeth aren't necessarily helpful for feeding. Instead, they are weapons that are specifically designed for fighting each other. If you have ever seen two hippos fight, you know how brutal it could be. Hippos regularly inflict deep puncture wounds and massive gashes on each other, meaning their bite isn't just for show. Also, come on, their whole body acts as a pure weapon. As I'm sure many of you are aware, hippos are pretty much a solid muscle with some fat layers covering them up. They are legitimately at the level that they can severely damage cars simply by charging into them. And despite weighing multiple tons, hippos are shockingly fast on their feet, and there's a good chance that you may not be able to outrun them. On land, they can reach top speeds of around 30 kilometers an hour or 19 miles per hour in short bursts, which is terrifying considering the animal's weight. However, it should be noted in the articles that I read that these speed estimates are, well, estimates. They are typically claimed for hippos weighing 1.5 tons in weight, and even then they are said to be unreliably measured. Arguably a scary fun fact is that hippos don't actually swim much. Instead, they run or push themselves along the riverbed. This allows them to move quickly while still keeping most of their body submerged. I guess that's what happens when you're 3 tons in pure muscle. When it comes to intelligence, hippos aren't particularly known for their Batman-level intellect. Many interactions between themselves and other animals show them acting rashly and aggressively rather than being cautious. Even then, intelligence doesn't play too big of a role between two brutes fighting. Their eyes, ears, and nostrils are of course positioned at the top of their skull, allowing them to remain mostly underwater while still hearing, seeing, and breathing. But one of the hippo's best traits going into this is the pure experience that they have. And as you should know, Moto does get into quite a few clashes. They share waterways with gnarled crocodiles. They also have to coexist and deal with lions, hyenas, and wild dogs in their everyday lives. Though I think it is more than fair to say those predators have to deal with the hippos, seeing as how often the hippo shrugs off their attacks. They also aren't too friendly to their herbivorous neighbors either. They will go out of their way to beef with buffaloes and rhinos whenever they overstay their welcome. Whether or not that's a smart idea for them is another story entirely. We also cannot forget about the African elephant, the largest terrestrial animal of today, and let us just say that most hippos are smart enough to ignore them. So when you're talking about the most aggressive mammal in the world, there should be no surprise they would be highly experienced when it comes to confrontations. To sum up the hippopotamus, I just gotta say it's big, mean, and an absolute fighting machine. So with both Suchomimus and Hippopotamus analysed, who takes what categories? Well, I have the Suchomimus taking length, height, weight, speed, agility, weaponry, and stamina. Meanwhile, I have the hippopotamus taking bite force, bite effectiveness, experience, durability, and endurance. Though if you wanted to give stamina to the hippopotamus based on the fact that they can fight for a very long time, that'd be completely understandable. But alright, with our dinosaur and mammals set in stone, it's time to break down who would win a conflict along the shore of a river. But of course, make sure to like and subscribe so I can keep making videos just like this and not go extinct like the Suchomimus. Here, the Suchomimus will be at 5.4 tons and the hippopotamus at 3.6 tons. Given its larger size and reach, the Suchomimus would likely try to keep the fight at a mid-range using its long snout and four limbs to probe for openings while keeping the hippo at bay. The dinosaur's biggest advantage is its overall size, claws, and predatory instincts, but we shouldn't overestimate the use of its claws as it would have to get quite close to be able to use them. Even if the Suchomimus's bite is weaker than the hippo's, its 1 meter skull were filled with over 100 conical teeth. These could still inflict some serious puncture wounds if it managed to get a clean bite. After all, getting bitten by a 1/2 ton crocodile whose jaws don't wrap around you is one thing, it's a completely other thing if you get bitten by a 5-ton theropod. That being said, the hippo's durability is no joke. Their incredibly thick skin acts as natural armor, and they regularly survive brutal clashes with other hippos that involve their massive tusks. Because of that fact, it would likely take some time for the Suchomimus' bites and slashes to really start wearing the animal down. I believe that the hippo's main win condition in this fight is its bite and explosive power. If the hippo managed to close the distance and somehow land a solid bite or even knock over the Suchomimus, then it would be catastrophic. But that is also the biggest challenge. It is much shorter than the Suchomimus, meaning it would have to get extremely close to use its jaws effectively. Meanwhile, it would be easier for the theropod to get its bites in. In the end, I believe this matchup is surprisingly close, much closer than people give it credit for. But in saying that, I think that the Suchomimus would win it more times than not. Solely less on its overall toolkit, but because of its sheer size. Having a 2-ton size advantage is just not something the hippo can deal with. I believe that the Suchomimus takes the win a majority of the time. Again, it is an elephant-sized theropod against a hippo. And with that, we have reached the end of the video, and I hope you've all enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and comment down below what you'd like to see next. I'll catch you all in the next video. See ya, mates.